ルーシーじゃねえ。ほら、ルフィ。海賊王になる男だ。
What makes Luffy Luffy? And what makes you you? Is it your job or where you live or how you look or maybe D, all of the above? Well, what if I told you that your true identity isn't tied to any of that, but it's your memories? Well, British philosopher John Locke had a theory of personal identity, which posits that a person's identity is only defined by their consciousness, specifically the continuity of that consciousness over time. According to Locke, in a paper titled An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, if a person can remember their past experiences, they're the same person as the one who had those experiences, regardless of any physical change that may have occurred. He asserted this to refute the Cartesian theory that the idea of the soul accounts for personal identity. Locke asserted that personal identity is a matter of psychological continuity, and his theory is fundamental for how we understand our identities and how we understand ourselves. This is how we understand what makes you you, or more importantly, what would make you not you. And unsurprisingly, the theme of personal identity is central in the characters and the plot of One Piece. So many character arcs contain significant physical and emotional transformations. So in this video, let's take a look at John Locke's theory of personal identity and how our own concept of who we are can be understood through 5 characters in One Piece. The easiest example of this in One Piece might be Trafalgar Law. Like, his devil fruit powers literally allow him to perform personality swapping surgery. And in a way, this is like a direct demonstration of Locke's theory. Actually, so direct that it pretty much directly mirrors Locke's own example, the Prince and the Cobbler. And I'm not going to explain all of that, but like in that example, Law transfers the consciousness of characters from one body to another. But these individuals retain their personal identities because their consciousness and their memories remain intact. This demonstrates how personal identity is maintained through continuity of consciousness and memory, and how it's independent of the physical body that the consciousness inhabits. When Law swaps the Straw Hats' bodies on Punk Hazard, it leads to a bunch of great gags, but ultimately it doesn't erase or alter who any of the characters are. When Law swaps Nami's minds into different bodies, Nami's identity remains as long as her consciousness and her memories are with her, regardless of the body she inhabits. And this is Locke's thought experiment to a T. If your heart was magically cut out and put into another person's body and then swapped back, you would still be you.
生きててよかった。
The ultimate end of identity should be death, right? But what about people who have near-death experiences, or people that are like legally pronounced dead and then come back to life? Or what about like a skeleton who was once a man but ate the revive fruit? If you came back to life in one of these circumstances, do you think you'd hold on to the person that you were before? In Brook's case, we kind of have to take him at his word. Like, none of the characters so far knew him in his previous life, but if you do take him at his word, despite his incredible transformation, Brook's personality remains intact. And we know this because he retains his memories and his consciousness. His memories of his past life and his promise to Laboon, those are what provide the continuity that defines his identity. It shows that personal identity persists through significant physical changes. Even through what should be the ultimate change, death, identities are strong and connected as long as they're continuous, as long as you're comprised of your same memories. If nothing changes in your brain, or even if you don't have one because you're all bones, you will still be you. Have you ever wondered how somebody can change so much on the outside but still stay the same on the inside? Like, if your body underwent a fundamental transformation, or if you were in One Piece and you were Tony Chopper. While there was undoubtedly some consciousness change in Chopper when he ate the human fruit, he shows that he retains his current personal identity when he undergoes his point transformations. Whether those are hybrid Zoan forms or not, we may never know. But it's clear that those point changes don't alter who Tony Chopper is at his core. Because while Chopper's transformations drastically alter his appearance and ability, Chopper's core identity remains the same because his continuous consciousness and memories tie his forms together. However, when Chopper initially harnesses Monster Point, there's a definitive shift. Chopper knows it, and the Straw Hats know it. Before he learns to control himself, Chopper is not Chopper when he eats too many Rumble Balls. His identity as the kind-hearted doctor of the crew is gone. So most of Chopper's transformations confirm Locke's idea that personal identity is not tied up to physical appearance, but to the continuity of consciousness. And Monster Point actually demonstrates it in a different way, showing what a break in the continuity of consciousness looks like. His friends don't recognize him, and Chopper doesn't remember anything. Chopper thinks of that version of himself as a monster he's willing to unleash for Luffy, but not a monster that he or anyone else actually considers to be Chopper. To start this next section, I actually have to take a detour to the ship of Theseus. This is basically a dilemma where if a ship is damaged over time, and each time that a part is damaged, it's replaced, eventually the ship will entirely be made of different parts than the original construction. And the question is that the same ship? So to put this in John Locke / One Piece terms, as Franky has rebuilt his body to be entirely machine, is he still Franky? After sustaining severe injuries in his past and then doing a little construction again during the time skip, Franky chose to rebuild his body with cyborg enhancements. But we all know just from watching the show that Franky hasn't ever changed who he is. And this is actually directly related to a quote from John Locke. Locke wrote, "If the same substance which thinks be changed, it can be the same person. Or remaining the same, it can be a different person." Basically what he's saying is that if the materials you use to think change, it doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't you anymore. Franky's transformation highlights Locke's idea that personal identity isn't tied to physical appearance, but to the continuity of consciousness. His memories, personality, and relationships remain intact, showing that his core identity persists despite the transformations.
Stomp!
The other half of that Locke quote was remaining the same, it can be a different person. Here he means that your consciousness can be lost, like forgetfulness, even if the same physical things you use to think remain the same. Under these conditions, it's like the same body, but a different person. But what about deep emotional transformations? Like transformations that completely change your life's direction, like the journey of Nico Robin. In her character arc, we see someone who goes from a smart, loving child to a scared fugitive to a nihilistic assassin outlaw to finally being a happy little weirdo that we know and love as a member of the Straw Hats. And through this massive transformation, is Robin still Robin? Where does the Robin we know and love begin? And is it even possible for somebody to hold on to their core identity living through the experiences that Robin has? I mean, trauma has a powerful impact on identity. And we know that Robin experienced an immense amount of trauma. We know that trauma can cause change so fast that identity is lost in the persistence of memory and emotion. But we also know that trauma can be healed or recovered in some way from the empathy of those around them. What Robin showcases in her time with the Straw Hats is a connection to that same smart, loving little girl, in her deep care for the island that she came from, in the personal mission that she's on to learn the history of the world, and recently showing her memory and joy surrounding Saul. Robin, like the identity that Robin has, is a you that through all of these horrors persists. She affirms to us through the continuity of these memories that at the end of the day, she's still the same person.
だから言ったろ、俺は強いって。
てめえ、一体何者だ？
俺はモンキー D ルフィ。海賊王になる男だ。
In One Piece, characters like Law, Chopper, Brook, Franky, and Robin exemplify John Locke's theory on personal identity. Their relationship with identity isn't tied to physical form, it's connected to continuity of consciousness and memory. It illustrates that personal identity persists through significant physical and experiential changes, aligning with Locke's concept that it's the continuity of consciousness that defines who we are. Like in college, I took a philosophy class about the concept of you. It was all about identity, and there was a thought experiment about this. It was like if teleportation was invented, and when you stepped into the machine, it deconstructed all your atoms and rebuilt them halfway across the world, would that still be you? Like if all the matter's the same and you retain your memories, is that still you? Or is that version of you, that version with memory and consciousness continuity, different? Would it just be a copy of you with the same memories? Like when I'm in a Google Doc and I copy paste something, am I copying the exact same text or just a different version of it? I mean, I don't know, but it's always for years pinged around in my brain. But what I do know is that if identity is tied to memory, I wouldn't mind being a new me if it meant that I could watch One Piece for the first time again. But what do you think? How do your memories and your experiences shape who you are? And who are you? Let me know what makes you you in the comments, Robot Kings. You know what to do. Beep boop. Beep beep boop 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 beep boop boop boop. Beep beep boop boop boop.